All right, so we got Seth in Cincinnati. Thanks for waiting.
Thank you. Hello.
Hello.
Thanks for having me on. Sorry for the obligatory long-time listener, first-time caller.
Oh, great.
Yeah, so I want to talk to you today about exclusion, and there seems to be kind of a theme going on in some of your answers about how you're not really required to convince anyone or to explain yourself to them. But my position, or my situation, kind of deals with this. Recently, I was working at a fundraiser with my father for his organization he belongs to, and he's a Freemason. And I'm not sure how much you guys know about Freemasonry, but God is very much involved, and although they have a very deistic kind of view, it's very much obligatory. And part of their kind of creed that they say is that they specifically exempt atheists. In particular, they say that they will never knowingly allow an atheist to join the organization. So while I was at this fundraiser, and I was there for my father to help him, several of the other members kind of came up and just in passing talked to me about joining. And I felt very conflicted because I felt that they don't really appreciate the fact that here's this great guy who's helping out, and he happens to be an atheist, and we can't let him in our club. And the other problem I have is that I'm not quite sure how to talk to my father about it because, even though I've talked to him about my views, I think he's kind of more in denial that you're not religious, but you're spiritual kind of viewpoint. So I guess I'm trying to figure out how to kind of bring in some idea of how it makes me feel to be exempted from an organization in that fashion.
It's hard with parents. I know how that goes because sometimes, they just want to have their nice little bubble and think that, it's just a phase, or, it's not as strong as I think it is. But then, you are an atheist. You're not just spiritual or something like that. As far as the exemption or exclusion goes, does he want you to join or something and you can't, or what's going on with that?
Oh, well, again, going back to Freemasonry, they have a very deistic kind of approach to God as a grand architect, and they don't require any specific religious kind of position, with the exception of believing in a God. Mm-hmm. So the fact of having the position that you reject God, like part of the creed they give is that they will never knowingly allow certain types of people to join, and it's actually funny because they qualify with three things. One is a fool, the other is an old man who's senile, and the third is an atheist. I thought that's kind of a weird kind of clustering of that. And like I said, I wouldn't really care about what the other members might think of me or say, but I find it odd that here I am helping out with this organization that would never have me as a member. And despite what the Groucho Marx comment about never belonging to a club but having you for a member, I'm just not entirely sure how to come to terms with that. And I guess part of it also stems from, it's kind of a double whammy, because I'm also a Eagle Scout, and I always had an interest in going back and working in the adult leadership for Boy Scouts. But one of the reasons why the Boy Scouts allowed gays and open homosexuals to be leaders is because they didn't want to be forced to have to allow atheists as well. So I kind of feel like all my interests and backgrounds are exempting atheists in particular.
Yeah, now I'm in I guess, slightly different situation because I wouldn't want to be a member of either of those organizations, so I'm fine with the fact that they want to exclude me. I'm happy to point out that there's no good reason for their exclusion, and this tells us a lot more about what kind of organization they actually are. There's plenty of organizations that do good work that are terrible on some other issue. The Boy Scouts have been that way forever. Masons and Shriners and all kinds of organizations that do positive stuff are going to have some screwy views that exclude people who are perfectly willing and capable to do that good work. And it tells more about what they consider to be important, much in the same way that, some churches who have been involved in scandals, their focus is always on protecting the church. It's not about making amends and properly dealing with the victims. And in many cases, they have gone out of their way to hinder legal investigations. And so when I look at them, I don't say, oh, they're doing such good work, I wish they'd let me in. I look at it and say, okay, so they've done some good things, and they're really, really terrible here and there. I'd rather work with an organization that's going to do the good things without the baggage. And because of that, the only actual answer I can give to what you're talking about in dealing with your dad is just to keep being honest. And when it comes to dealing with that group, keep being who you are, because eventually there's going to be a bunch of people in that group who are going to recognize, hey, we've got this guy who's awesome and he's doing good work and, he's helping us out, and we'd love to have him as an actual member, but something about our policies excludes him. And why is that the case? Why would our policies be such that they would exclude good people who are willing to work with us? And, that's how changes happen. When people start recognizing, maybe we've got a bad policy.
And I would also suggest that I've heard about scouting organizations that aren't the Boy Scouts that do similar work, but they don't exclude people. I think they mostly sprung up around gay members, although I think there's some religious concerns too. You might want to look around and see in your area if there are organizations like that, so maybe you can feel like you're part of a group that welcomes you a little bit more, because it's not a good feeling to feel like, people don't want you.
Definitely.
Hello?
Sure. I'm sorry. I thought you were saying something. I was just going to say that a big part of what drives me in this is that I'm a big advocate of the out approach to atheism, and how I don't just want to say, these organizations don't want to have me, so I'll just find someone else. I'd rather be the guy, like you mentioned, who shows off his qualities and to say, and I'm an atheist too, and it's okay that I can't be in your club. I still want to help out my dad in this thing that he's passionate about.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of options. You either set aside the differences and work with them because they're working on a good goal. You can work to try to change the organizations, or you can work with different organizations or start a new one. They're all viable paths to getting good stuff done. Not just a couple weeks ago, I was mentioning that it may not be worthwhile to go out and reinvent the wheel if you're wanting to do a particular charity work. And there's already an organization that does it. Helping them on that goal isn't necessarily an endorsement of everything that they stand for. If it happens to be the most efficient way to, get food to the needy or something, then you working with them, at least temporarily, until you find a better path, a way to get rid of the religious baggage or the bigotry, it may be the best way to do the most good.
Definitely. I think all I can do is just be myself and do the good things that are in my heart, and just show people that just because I have an answer to one question that differs from them doesn't mean that I'm someone you can't associate with.
Yep.
Sounds good to me. Thanks, Seth.
Thank you.
All right, and Phil's going to go ahead and queue up another caller for us. It's, we did in Pennsylvania, we had a thing at the end of the convention where we packed up food to feed the homeless.
Yeah, I saw the pictures.
It was great stuff. We were actually working for an organization that I'm pretty sure has religious ties. We were in direct competition with the church to see which of us could do it, and they made it a lot of fun. But as soon as you start talking about religion or churches, one thing to remember is that they're not all the same. For example, yesterday you spoke at a Methodist church in Austin.
Yeah, no, and I've done sermons at Unitarian churches before. But they're Unitarians. Actually, one of the groups in Southern California that I do work with for their food pantry, a big thing that some atheist groups in the area do is they try to gather food and get it donated in the middle of the year, because they always get a lot of food at Thanksgiving and Christmas, but by June there's nothing. And it's really bad, especially for families, because kids stop getting school lunches in the summer, and so they need more food more than ever. So we would get food in July, and the guy who runs it is a former minister, but he's a good person, and it's a good organization doing excellent work.